If I told you there existed an unspoken doctrine, an arcane cipher buried beneath the rubble of polite society and censored academia, that explained the essence of feminine strategy, you would scoff. Not because the truth is invisible, but because it has been draped in layers of moral theatre and sentimental distraction. The world we inhabit is not constructed upon candour, but upon illusion, particularly in matters of sex, affection, and hierarchy. And among the grandest illusions is the one that teaches men to bow when they should study, to serve when they should observe, to adore when they should calculate. Men do not fail to understand women because they are fools by nature. They fail because they are instructed to be. Fed a banquet of falsehoods, be kind and you shall be rewarded. Devotion begets loyalty. Love is earned through sacrifice. They walk willingly into the teeth of a creature they do not know, convinced the path to her heart is paved with sincerity. Meanwhile, the woman, knowing, sensing, reacting, is executing a far more intricate game, one guided not by honesty, but by instinct, not by logic, but by advantage. And yet in the shadows of history, one man, reviled and buried by those terrified of his clarity, dared to sketch her architecture, not as a goddess, not as a victim, but as a strategist. That man was Freud. The myth that Freud's most scandalous work revolved around childish jealousy or the architecture of dreams is a pleasing deflection. His true heresy was not in discussing the id. It was in decoding female agency in a way too dangerous to print. His most private writings did not marvel at romantic devotion. They dissected its illusion. Behind locked doors, he outlined a world where the female psyche, in all its beauty and brutality, orchestrated desire like a silent war general, crafting strategies not out of cruelty but necessity. Let us begin with a single, symbolic figure, a woman of Vienna whose wealth granted her social polish, but whose behavior revealed a cold brilliance. She lured men with softness and vanished without reason. Her inconsistency was not madness, it was design. Freud traced her games not to whimsy, but to injury. As a child, she had watched her mother eviscerate her father's authority through ridicule and contempt. In this she learned her first principle of power, that domination once surrendered cannot be reclaimed, that to possess devotion is to possess a man's leash. This is not merely a case study, it is a diagram. For the feminine impulse is not to seize control through brute imposition, but through atmosphere, through the crafting of tension, the manipulation of silence, the creation of craving. The female does not often conquer by invasion. She conquers by invitation, issuing signals, withdrawing warmth, making herself scarce precisely when her value peaks. In this calculated absence, she becomes more present than ever. Men imagine they are chosen, they are tested, and the test is rarely verbal. It is built into the theatre of unpredictability. Women, Freud wrote, seek not kindness, but polarity. They gravitate not toward safety, but toward contradiction. The man who can evoke pleasure and pain, presence and distance, admiration and defiance, not because they are chaotic, but because they are wired to extract the most biologically and socially valuable mate through stress and story. Conflict, in her mind, is not failure, it is proof of engagement. Modern minds recoil from this, craving egalitarian tales, but biology has no interest in fairness, only outcome. A study out of Texas once revealed that women engage more intensely with men who are not reliably available. Is this manipulation? Number, it is evolution. The man who can restrain his adoration is the man who, by ancient standards, holds options, status, and threat properly shaped is irresistible. It is not the man who bends that excites her. It is the man she cannot bend. Do you wish to win a woman? Then do not court her with gifts and praise, court her with enigma. Let her work to decipher you. Let your silence provoke reflection. Let your scarcity breed demand. For nothing is more seductive to the human mind than that which is partially withheld. This is not cruelty, it is architecture. But there is more. Freud, whose brilliance was as much political as it was psychological, discovered a mechanism even darker than desire, a circuit in the unconscious that bypassed reason and seized control. He called it a shadow. I call it the spine of conquest. This mechanism, he noted, responded not to kindness, but to friction. In one legendary case, a noble woman discarded a life of luxury for a man who could not even spell his own name. Her husband had adored her, praised her, elevated her. The stable boy did none of these things. He vanished. He ignored her. He did not seek her attention. He simply existed without her. And that, paradoxically, made her chase. She was not irrational. She was governed by a principle deeper than thought, the need to prove her worth. The stable boy's disinterest created in her a sense of incompletion, a need to win. And in attempting to conquer him, she became conquered. You see, in every interaction, someone bends, and the one who refuses to chase inevitably becomes the one chased. Men mistake affection for victory, but the wise understand that influence arises not when a woman loves you, but when she doubts herself in your presence. The art of provocation lies not in insult, but in contrast. Be warm when expected to be distant. Be gone when expected to be present. In this alternation, you sow obsession. Freud called this intermittent reward. The mind, he noted, does not respond most powerfully to consistency. It responds to unpredictability. This is why the gambler returns to the table, not because he wins, but because he does not know when he will win. The same principle governs attraction. If she cannot predict your affection, she becomes attuned to your every gesture. A celebrated opera singer, in another tale, discarded her career, her status, her comfort, to follow a man who barely acknowledged her. When asked why, she said, "When he looks at me, I burn. When he leaves, I vanish." This, dear reader, is not love, it is conditioning. It is psychological leverage masquerading as romance. Today, laboratories confirm what Freud merely sensed. The brain's pleasure centers ignite most explosively when reward is uncertain. Relationships that mix approval and absence produce stronger chemical bonds than those that offer stability. Is it fair? That word has no place in this conversation. What matters is efficacy. And still, there is a third current flowing beneath all this, a force not merely to attract, but to transform. The true seducer, Freud wrote in hushed tones, does not merely win the woman's body, he rearranges her identity. He makes her feel not beautiful, but reborn. And in doing so, he creates dependency, not on himself, but on what she becomes in his shadow. An artist once captured this. He did not chase women. He invited them into a world where their reflection became foreign. A woman he drew from the world of comfort and decorum found herself reckless, primal, divine in his presence. He did not flatter her. He challenged her. He did not console her. He provoked her. And in this friction she became addicted, not to him, but to the version of herself he awakened. This is not seduction. It is sorcery. A true prince does not tell a woman who she is. He shows her who she could be. And when she tastes this transformation, she will not want to return to the version of herself who existed before you. The mirror of her potential is the most potent aphrodisiac, and if you hold it steadily, she will follow it to the end of the world. But beware, transformation demands tension. If you only comfort her, you numb her. If you only praise her, you devalue your approval. The sculptor who never breaks stone will never reveal the statue inside. Likewise, the man who fears offending will never ignite desire. The key is in the push and pull, not of affection but of vision. If she is soft, demand steel. If she is gifted, demand proof. Do not be her cushion, be her challenge. The one who makes her feel more than she believes herself capable of being. This was the lesson of Byron, of Napoleon, of every man who left behind scorched pages of obsession. They were not merely charismatic, they were catalytic. They evoked fire where there was ash. And the women, being creatures of transformation, followed them not out of logic, but because in their presence they were more. Modern studies now validate what Freud whispered. People are drawn not to those who mirror them, but to those who stretch them. The woman does not yearn for stability, she yearns for evolution. And the man who understands this becomes not a suitor, but a siren call. In our time, men are taught to worship, to submit, to become sentimental shadows of themselves in pursuit of feminine favor. But the wise see past this. They do not kneel. They sculpt, they provoke, they transform, and in doing so, they do not merely attract, they conquer. There remains one final layer, one so dangerous it was hidden even from Freud's most loyal followers, a point where affection ceases to be voluntary and becomes encoded into the very structure of her being. It is not seduction, it is imprinting. And it changes everything. There exists a moment in every strategic conquest when power ceases to be negotiated and becomes absolute. It is the moment when a subject no longer chooses submission, but is tethered to it by unseen chains. This moment, in the domain of female psychology, is not poetic fantasy. It is a biological phenomenon, an imprinting of mind and body so irreversible that even reason bows to it. Freud, though publicly cautioned, where a woman no longer loves you because she chooses to, but because she must. The term he used was imprinting, not the tender bond of affection, but the violent locking of identity to another's presence. This is no ordinary attachment. It is forged in the crucible of intensity, in the collision of ecstasy and agony, of presence and absence, of dominance and mystery. Like the duckling that follows the first figure it perceives as mother, the human mind, under the right duress and desire, welds its perception of self to the one who reshaped it. And in the case of female attraction, this fusion is not accidental, it is engineered. One of Freud's most chilling cases involved a woman who, despite every opportunity and reason to escape, remained bound to a man who had humiliated and undermined her. When pressed for explanation, she uttered a phrase that should terrify every naive idealist. With him, I am real. She did not defend him. She did not claim he was kind or good. She confessed he awakened a self she could not access alone. That awakening became her prison. This, dear reader, is the apex of seduction, not to be wanted, but to be needed at the level of selfhood. And it does not come from comfort, it comes from disruption. Men who aim to please are forgotten, men who rupture a woman's sense of who she is and replace it with a new version. Those men are carved into her nervous system. The process is not magical, it is mechanistic. First, the man must provoke investment, not financial, not physical, but emotional. She must give, suffer, yearn, ache. She must struggle for his attention, question his motives, wonder about his affection. In this uncertainty, she bleeds value into the dynamic. And once she has paid that emotional toll, the mind, desperate to justify the expense, convinces itself the bond is sacred. This is called effort justification. It is not a theory. It is a law of human cognition. We believe most strongly in what costs us most dearly. A study at Yale revealed that women who endured emotional turbulence in early phases of a relationship reported greater satisfaction and attachment long term. The chaos did not repel them, it rewired them. This is why the man who is difficult to obtain becomes more precious than the man who offers himself without resistance. Not because women enjoy suffering, but because the mind equates difficulty with value and ease with dispensability. But Freud identified a far subtler principle beneath this. He called it the convergence of contradiction, the simultaneous activation of the brain's pleasure and pain centers. The man who can elicit longing and relief, tension and release, fury and ecstasy within the same interaction bypasses cognitive filters and speaks directly to the primal self. When the nervous system experiences that level of variance, when dopamine, cortisol, and oxytocin fire together, the person becomes fused to the source. And so it is with the woman who says she cannot leave. She may list grievances, catalogue betrayals, weep in front of friends, but she will not go, because she has been chemically branded, not with affection, but with intensity. This is not manipulation. This is alchemy. History's most cunning lovers understood this far before Freud gave it a name. They did not seduce with consistency. They seduced with contrast. Casanova did not win women with reliability. He took them to the edge of panic, then whispered poetry into the void. One of his lovers recounted a night where he vanished mid-sentence during a Venetian masquerade and reappeared at dawn with a blood-soaked letter professing love and indifference in the same breath. She never recovered. This formula, high stakes, emotional shock, narrative unpredictability, is no accident. It mimics trauma, and the brain, in its primitive wisdom, stores trauma differently than ordinary memory. It becomes encoded, replayed, relived. And if that trauma is laced with pleasure, it becomes irresistible. Modern neuroscience confirms this truth. MRI studies have shown that emotionally charged experiences, especially those that involve risk or fear alongside pleasure, create deeper and longer-lasting neural imprints than safe, consistent interactions. This is why the man who can lead a woman through an emotional labyrinth becomes unforgettable, not because of what he gave, but because of what he awakened. And herein lies the Machiavellian opportunity. If you wish to dominate a woman's memory, do not merely seduce her body, seduce her imagination. Let her associate you with the most vivid experiences of her life. Let her laugh in your presence in ways she never knew she could. Let her cry, rage, tremble, and soar, then disappear. Let the silence gnaw at her mind. Let her rebuild your image from fragments. In that reconstruction, you become myth. The mistake most men make is seeking peace. But peace is the death of fascination. The woman who feels entirely safe may love you, but she will not crave you. Craving lives in the realm of danger, of doubt, of unresolved tension. The moment your presence becomes predictable, your power diminishes. The wise man alternates between mirror and maze. At times reflect her brilliance back at her. At others, vanish behind a wall of unknowability. This duality ensures she never fully possesses you, and thus must continue striving for your favor. Power, after all, is the art of being indispensable without ever being fully understood. Let us turn to one final historical example, the sculptor and his muse. He was neither handsome nor wealthy, but the women he touched abandoned everything for him. Why? Because he did not offer admiration. He offered evolution. He saw them not as they were, but as they could become. And then he dared them to rise. His praise was rare, his criticism surgical, but in his presence they felt transformed. This is the final truth of female attachment. It is not built on affection, it is built on elevation. She will leave the man who adores her if he does not challenge her. But she will remain loyal to the man who makes her feel like a revelation, the one who sees her not as beautiful, but as unfinished, and who, by his presence, demands her completion. This is why compliments fail and provocations succeed. The world praises her every day. What she seeks is not validation, it is reflection. She wants to see a version of herself she cannot conjure alone. And the man who delivers that becomes not a partner, but a portal. It is not enough to be charming. You must be catalytic. You must be the event in her life that rewrites her narrative, the chapter she rereads at night, the name that tastes like thunder and silk on her tongue. This is not romance. This is conquest. And so, my reader, if you seek to be loved, follow the path of poets. But if you seek to be remembered, if you wish to live rent-free in her bloodstream, then abandon the pursuit of harmony and embrace the architecture of tension. Orchestrate your presence like a symphony, full of quiet strings and sudden crescendos of vanishing interludes and violent declarations. Be the storm she prays to escape and the shelter she runs to in the same breath. That is how you win not just the woman, but the legend she will whisper about for decades to come. Understand, however, that this path is not gentle. It is not for the timid. It requires cold vision, not sentiment, precision, not kindness. You must observe more than you speak, plan more than you feel, and remember this above all: power in love is not claimed, it is engineered. And now, as this discourse concludes, you must decide. Will you remain among the chorus of men who adore and are discarded, who beg and are bored, who comfort and are forgotten? Or will you ascend into the rare class of men who leave fingerprints not on skin but on identity? If the truths presented here have unsettled you, take comfort. You are awakening. The illusions of modernity are comforting only to the weak, but for the bold, for the few who dare to wield knowledge as a weapon. This forbidden psychology is not darkness, it is light. And as for those who would suppress it, who fear that too many men might understand what women already practice, let them tremble. For history is not written by those who love the most. It is written by those who see the deepest. And you now have seen. Let the others dream of happy endings. You, instead, will write your name in the quiet spaces of the mind no one else can reach. And so we end not with sentiment, but with certainty. He who understands the female psyche as terrain, as battlefield, as kingdom, does not merely love. He rules.